Professor KAGWANJA, good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you on Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
Welcome to the hot seat.
Asante sana. Namshukuru.
Mambo mengi yanatendeka Kenya mzima.
Yes.
Yes. You have, of course, been analyzing and commentating on Kenya's politics for many years.
Yes.
As an observer, in some
But I'm
cases,
still young.
as a you look young. You look your age.
Let's keep it that way.
You look your age, Prof. This election, before we even go into the details of whatever has happened, if you look at the conduct of this election, starting from the campaign period, and not the campaign, just the declaration of the election dates, into the nomination of candidates, into the conduct by the candidates, into the campaigns, into the election itself, up to the declaration of William Ruto as the eventual winner of the presidential race. How do you rate it?
I think it's one of the best we've had in so far as shaking our faith in the nation and feeling threatened is concerned. If you looked at the Nairobi Stock Exchange for the first time in our history, it did not go down. It remained constant throughout. In the previous elections, it would just go down because all the key players in the trade would go to London or Dubai or wherever to wait until the madness is over, and then they will come back around the end of the next year and then start their business. So that we have had a business cycle of 3 years. Before the election, people disappear. They stay away for another year before they come back, and then we start business. This is unusual in that regard. 2 is the closest we've had in our history. 233,000 difference between the so-called the winner and the loser, the last loser, and when that is happening, nobody is losing their life in terms of these ethnic crashes, which we have always had. Yeah, there's skirmishes here and there, but they're nowhere comparable with 1992, nowhere comparable with 1997, and nowhere comparable with 2007. The nation is calm. The streets are quiet. So I think our democracy is coming of age. We still have our teething problems, but it's coming of age. That's my view.
Is that a real situation? You know, sometimes they talk about what could be a false feeling. But do we see that as the real situation that goes beyond skin deep? To say that even if there was a flare-up and somebody said something, then the situation may change? Or do we really see that mature democracy then has started to become really entrenched in the people in terms of, belief and practice?
By maturity, I don't mean that we have grown naturally to where we have. There have been serious interventions in terms of thinking of how do we secure ourselves. And that is what the 2010 Constitution was all about. Because why we went to that, ugly, disastrous fight in 2007, 2008, was because there was no fallback. If you lose, so what? So the winners take all situation was so stuck that the choice was very narrow, to go to the courts or to go to the streets. The courts were simply a trap. Therefore, most people would prefer not to go to the courts because it depends on who appointed the judges, who are closest to the judges, and therefore the street was easier, and that's what we would always do. Now, that then said, the 2010 Constitution was the game changer. It was the game changer because it introduced the Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court. And it's our choice. When we want to fight hard and fast, then we go to the Supreme Court. But if you just want an interpretation of the situation, for example, what happens when 4 commissioners out of 7 take a certain position? It's your choice. Do you want to go to the Supreme Court, or do you want to go to a constitutional interpretation of that situation? Then when you get to a constitutional interpretation, if you're satisfied, it's okay. If you're not, you can't go to the Supreme Court because you would be time-bound. Because you have only 7 days within which to file your case. So in a situation, in a way, what is really cushioning our democracy is the Supreme Court, the faith. So when you listened to His Excellency Raila Odinga yesterday, he didn't say what he said in 2007 or 2007. The 00, it's a people's option.
Yes.
Or what he said in 2017, it's people's choice or a people's president. He said, we are going to seek justice in the court. What does that mean? We do have faith in our institutions. And therefore, the institutions are growing. Now, again, when you listen to his comment on IEBC, he's kind of saying this is work in progress, but this time round it has not delivered. That's his argument. Again, it's an institutional debate about us. So I like looking at things from that long-term view, because if you look at just now, then you lose the bigger picture of where we are coming from and possibly where we are going.
You know, arguments have been fronted, and even this morning I've just been raising this one on the opportunities that we've had to have proper, meaningful electoral reforms. Justice Johan Kriegler came and prepared an entire report in which he recommended very many things. Some of them were included in the Constitution, and others were now expected to, be entrenched in practice, in regulations, and all. We are still at a point where we are discussing how to conduct our election. We are still at a point where we have, some level of lack of faith in the electoral system, where people say, okay, if we look at, yesterday we were having a conversation and asking people, did you participate in the election and why not? Many were saying, what change will it have? Do I trust that it's going to have any meaningful impact on me? So there's that whole thing of, not even bringing in the necessary faith that elections actually end up in democracy and end up impacting your life on a daily basis. Are we missing opportunities every day?
I don't think so. First and foremost, let's say that I'm an optimist, because life has not been kind, and it's not without faith and hope that I have come this far. So I like looking at the half full kind of glass rather than the other way around, and I'm aware that I can look at it the other way around. Electoral reforms. I don't think there's any other country in Africa that has gone through this kind of thorough reform agenda. And I've lived outside Kenya longer than I have lived inside Kenya. And I have not lived in the West. I've lived within the continent. South Africa, Ethiopia, Senegal. These are the countries where, by virtue of earning your daily bread, that I found myself in. Zimbabwe was at one time where I made my bread for 5 years. So, people in the villages by their names. And I can tell you, comparatively, within the African continent, Kenya has gone through the most exclusive electoral agenda. We still have to go through more electoral reforms. Why do I say so? We are the most expensive election in the world. Then this is not really an exaggeration. No, it's not. $25 per vote in order to leave your house and go and cast your ballot, and then it be counted and announced that this is the one who has won. It is costing each one of us $25. That's about 2,000, 500,
close to 3,000.
And you compare with countries like India and others. India, it's about 25 cents. Or in America, it's almost negligible. Why is it? Because we don't trust each other as Kenyans. And therefore, we have rested our trust in technology. And technology has its own limit. Because technology has actually to be operated by human beings. And therefore, we'll always have this problem of who tampered with what. Because the technology is not tamper-proof. And that is the debate. Now, this year, we almost came to what you can call 100% success in getting technology to reflect what we'd want. when you talk about the Kim's kit. At least you put your finger and your name showed up and your ID and so, and you voted. Out of 14 million Kenyans who voted, at least it was only 97,000 who could not appear on the Kim's kit. So it is possible to now tell how many Kenyans voted and how many did not vote, so to say. And that is critical. Two, did they vote freely or they were coerced? That's something else you can look at. In 1997, working the Kenya Human Rights Commission, we discovered, yes, that the right to vote was not there. Even when you want to vote, you cannot vote because you fear going to burnt forest, you'll be killed. You fear if you leave the church compound to go and vote in the next polling station at Keses, you will be killed. So it's a choice of, do you want to vote or do you want to die? Those days. We've come a long way back from that. So electoral reforms, yes. Kenya's democracy, still work in progress. Elections, still work in progress. And if you think that we're behind schedule, look at one of the oldest democracies in the world, America. In 2000, I was there as a student. And we're talking about the dimple charts and hanging charts. Because their technology was the 19th century technology. And therefore, there was this hanging chart or this is dimple chart. In other words, it's deep enough, so to say. 2021, what are we saying? A president who has been refusing to leave office and orchestrating a coup within the office to prevent the other one from being voted. I'm talking about Donald Trump. And what happened? Currently, we are having the most thoroughgoing, investigation into that kind of criminal activity by a president. He got impeached just a few days before the other one was, sworn in. Democracy has its own demons, and it is never a complete project.
But when you give the example of America, would you then say, as someone who lived there, that they have the sort of issues we have with our electoral system?
They don't even have an electoral system, to be honest with you. This idea about independent electoral commissions is an experiment in Africa. They use the state. It's a state machinery, the way we did the good old days of Mzemoi. I say good old days. Before Mrorongo was really the extreme, in terms of electoral system, where you want to go to the primitive democracy of ancient Greece in Athens, where people are counted with their hands. I mean, how can you count 14 million people? And how far? I remember the queue of former President Mwai Kibaki in Othaya, in Mahiga. That's where he used to vote. It became nonsensical because it was about 3 kilometers or so. People loved him, that place. And they queued. That is 1988. They queued, and the labor that was required to count the line was really nonsensical. So you know what I mean. That was really pushing democracy to the extreme. But the other reality is that because the Americans trust their institutions and their sector, and they believe that they can be transparent, then they use state officials to do their elections.
Why do they trust their systems?
Because they know that if breaking the law pains. In other words, why are we corrupt as a country in Kenya? This is a debate we've been having elsewhere, because it's the same trend of corruption in public spaces that is now coming to the electoral system. The fear is my vote will be stolen. The counting will not represent the actual situation of how the voting process took place, because somebody is going to tamper with it. So it is the same logic of stealing. Why do we steal? We steal because it is more profitable to steal than not to steal. Why is that? Because the law does not punish us enough, and we responded to two stimuli, the two P's, pressure and pain. The pain is not there, and the pressure is enough.
So it happens because folk can get away with it.
Yes.
So if you're doing it comparatively, then on the other side, that folks can't get away with it.
No.
So over time, practice has made the people realize
Yeah.
that if you do something in a certain way,
Yeah.
there are consequences.
Yes.
If you live right,
Yeah.
there are circumstances through which you can live in
Yes.
profitably.
So, yes, it is a question of knowing that there's an electric wire here. You touch it, you'll be electrocuted. And there is a wire here, it has no consequence. So you just pull it and get through. So we don't really put those kind of moral boundaries and now rigorize those boundaries to the point that you know that if you are corrupt and you're caught, having a pyramid scheme, for example, in the US, you know what I'm talking about, in 2008, then you might be a billionaire or a trillionaire, but you are going to spend the rest of your life behind bars.
So
you make a choice. Do you want to live with the little you have comfortably, or do you want to make more and get caught and then live behind bars for eternity?
So are we saying on this end, Prof, that generally that nothing will be done, and so that is why you take the action?
Yes, and two, that's what in our language, the human rights language, you talk about impunity. And impunity is the worst thing that can happen to a community. Now, we knew in our small, primitive communities, I'm quoting, primitive communities.
Call them traditional.
No, let's use the way they like them, the Europeans, because we are now in a very civilized, globalized, village where we are global citizens, no longer citizens of some primitive villages. We have advanced. In those primitive areas, quote unquote, where we used to live, you knew if you interfered with somebody's, forgive the language, somebody's daughter, and put her in the mother's way before the real things are done, you knew the consequences.
Yep.
So as a young boy, you devised the way of leaving those girls without putting them in mother's way. Today, it's different because the boundaries were not just moral. They had a consequence. In our civilized world today, where we are in suits and in all manner of civilized regalias and, walking the morals and drinking, drinks that have human names and names that are from civilization, what are we talking about? We don't have if you steal, I was a candidate, senatorial candidate in Muranga, and I don't want to tell you how much I spent. It's a fortune. My family was very unhappy about it. Why is election so expensive? Because people cannot do what they are supposed to do. Their citizenship duty. Duty as a citizen, where you go and vote and go home because you've chosen the right leader. You have to entice people to come out to vote. You have to entice people, and the people need to be enticed. If you don't entice them, they don't come.
They don't come.
That's
and even after you entice them, they still don't vote for you.
They still come. It depends on whether they define you as a home or a hotel. Because you can eat at a hotel, but you still want your meal at home when you go home. Anyway, you end up. So, but let me put it this way: with our experience. You don't trust the party because the party, like now we're having a case in court over the same, because you were supposed to nominate candidates and candidates pay the fee for nomination. Then you decide not to do the nomination because you want to make profit for the party so that the officials can get something to share. And it's a respectable, the ruling political party. And deliberately, you don't carry nominations, so you make a kill. Somebody pays 250,000 for the nomination fee, then you call people into a hotel, you buy a samosa and a sausage and a cup of tea. Is that what was for 250,000 at this age and time? I would like to go back to that primitive village and live there. I'm not interested with this modernity. I'm tired.
Professor, if I listen to you carefully and I compare our democracy and the maturity of the age that it has arrived at, and the comparison with the African nations and the other nations of this continent, is it the best comparison really? Because we are talking about comparing what we have against other countries that don't have even a system that cannot even be compared in any way with ours. It's like we are looking at the bottom of the barrel to try and make a comparison. And so the optics will look good. Should we then not look at, because what we've discussed in this studio on many occasions, the issue of trust. And what you present is a system where impunity is king.
Yeah.
Now, if that then is the case, how then can anybody expect the system to be trusted?
Well, I think we've gone a long way in terms of building that. For example, in this particular election that we're talking about today, nobody is talking about the polling station. And because you can go to the screen and check your polling station. I voted somewhere in Muranga, in a Dinche place called Ichagaki. And in that place where I voted, I went online and checked how we voted in CBD. They call it the CBD in Maragua town. And I was okay with what I saw. It more or less reflected what I saw on the ground. And therefore, polling station, correct. The 2017 problem was the transmission now from the constituency to the National Tallying Center, the Bomas process. This year, no. Everybody is happy with it, the transmission. Now, we are now moving from the bombers, within the bombers, the counting, the tables that were put on us, they were so present in our sitting rooms throughout. These guys moving up and down, counting. It reminded me of my primary school class, the mathematics class, where we would move. Those who are not too clever in mathematics like me would be moving to the cleverer boys.
You'd be mixed with.
So we mixed in that class. So from that counting there by that group, which was empowered to do that. Now to announcement. That's where now we are stuck. So we are moving. So there is
the argument has moved from polling stations
to
tallying station, the constituency counties.
Now to
it's in Bomas.
Yes,
between the plenary of the hall and the boardroom.
And the boardroom. No, even that one seems to have accepted. It is from the boardroom to the microphone.
To the podium.
To the podium.
Actually, I would argue differently because if we say, the premise of what I'm about to say is that we say I'm stuck with the impunity. And I'm stuck with what it is that impunity does. You look at technology, trustworthy then, but it's managed by human beings. So if you're saying we could manipulate, I was alive and well and kicking in the days when there was Mlolongo or in the days when there was only one party. And I was alive when you were in a queue and the announcement was made and you wondered, but excuse me, the person who actually won was this one. How is it that we're now announcing this other one here? I mean, we just switched it. It's the mindset that I'm concerned about. You take that mindset even with the technology and the questions in my mind don't go away. Because I'm saying that if we take that scenario, you could have malpractice in plain sight. Plain sight, meaning we have a portal, go to it, look at it. Results are being transmitted, look at it. If the argument about the subversion of what we know to be right exists in the minds, what stops people from using that very transparent system to do exactly what they want? And I said, in plain sight.
Completely.
Yeah, you're looking at it and it's being done before your very eyes.
Let's take a break. It's 27 minutes to 9. Professor Peter KAGWANJA is here with us in the studio. He's a political analyst. We are talking about the 2022 presidential election, the results, the hits and the misses. After we come out of this break, we'll actually even now go into his bastion, Mount Kenya region, and try to understand what happened. Hey? Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the Situation Room. It's Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, CT Muga, and our guest this morning is Professor Peter KAGWANJA, political analyst. Prof, you intended to be a candidate for the senatorial race in Muranga this year.
Yeah, I intended to be a candidate, and I went all the way, and I won
the hearts of the people.
The nomination, the nominations. But which is really what I would say is real problem. I listened to Muga and what he was talking about, the whole idea of impunity within our system.
In plain sight.
In plain sight. And I remember we can't share after this the whole conversation, because somebody in the system thought that this thing will come to the air and put that whole article in the Nation. I had absolutely no hand in it. And I myself, when I read it, I cried because I did not know what had happened, what had hit me. It's like you've been hit by a car, you're down there, you don't know, so you were more concerned about your physical health than what hit you. Then now I am here and I'm reflecting on what has gone on here. I got 73. They were basing themselves on some poll that was done by some systemic system there, and I had 73, and my competition had it, I think it was 27 or something like that. And I am. And why? Oh, you are a loser because, you lost because the most important thing is loyalty.
Wait a minute. So in the opinion poll, you are leading.
Yes, 73%.
By a high margin.
By high margin.
73 versus 20.
27. But the most important criteria for the party
is loyalty.
Of whom? To who?
To the party, of course.
Or to the party
Of
leader,
you
to the
to
owner.
the party
Me
leader?
to the party.
To the owner of the party or to the party?
I didn't understand, because my loyalty is to the Republic of Kenya. And that's why I'm going to submit myself to do some service to the Republic. Because where I am, I'm doing well.
So you were denied the Jubilee ticket?
And I was not denied. Let me not say I was denied. I was told to make a choice between that and something else, which was not very clear what I'll be given.
Or you were being offered a job in the national campaign.
Enticement to leave. And what happens? The guy who was given the ticket was never reached even 8,000 against the yellow guy. From UDA. The UDA guy had, I think, 90%. This guy had less than 10%. Why? Because you messed up. And people became angry, because I'm known in my village. I'm not bragging, because I've been there for a while. I come from bottom. I come to these gadgets, the media.
People know you.
Vernacular ones. I'm best at Inoros and whatever. So I'm known. And I've done something that I'm called to primary schools to talk to people about. How did you make it? So it's not a name recognition. It's not the issue.
That was an issue.
So when you are cut that way,
But
the domino effect.
In fairness also, Prof, even your competitor was not a newbie in the game.
But baggage.
What baggage? He's a former senator. So everybody across the county has voted him in before.
If you kill in war, nobody remembers. They say it was war. But if you carry food during famine and people are dying and you walk away, even if it is yours, people take issues. What am I saying? COVID and the relationship was not good. You're stealing in the COVID time. When we are not even able to put food on our table.
If you know, you know.
You might not even have stolen. I don't think there was any stealing. This one I can say. That perception that you were presiding over this whole issue was the issue. And before I went into the pitch, there were about 72 videos. Articles, and I think 20 videos on the same. But that's not what brought us here. The issue is the primary elections in this country. It is the party that produces leaders. And if we don't do it at that base, at the party level, the primaries, then we are not going to produce a generation of leaders that are worth it. So it doesn't matter whether, there is something I like about ODM. They make a decision about the quality of leaders they want, but they also open a leeway for other free competition. But this and this and this and this are untouchable, because we need this brain. It is the same principle you find in nomination, the so-called nominated people in parliament. The 12 we have always kept. Because without the 12, George Saitoti would never become anything in this republic. He was nominated and so on. And there were many, Phoebe Asio, Uhuru Kenyatta, Phoebe Asio, and others. That is the corridor they used to come into the limelight and serve the republic. So nominations are so important to our democracy that I think post this election, the agenda should be to democratize party nominations.
Looking at your experience, which I think feeds into what we are talking about here in terms of the results, and so we said fine presidential results, but then we're looking at across board. What then would you say? Because obviously they say you learn from your mistakes in order for you to go forward. What would you say then was some fundamental mistakes, or what was some clear misses that we see that we should be able to claw back on moving forward?
There was regression. We have walked this far. What Muga saw in his good days, before he grayed up, was Murongo, where the small queue was won and the long queue lost. And these Morongos were managed by government officials,
DOs and DCs.
the DOs and DCs, and the chiefs were the mobilizers of the Rusas. Because they are loyal to the system.
Yeah.
So this is what we saw reenacted in 2022, and that's what made me sad. What produced Kenneth Matiba, was simply that. Some guys who cannot tolerate injustice. And therefore they get into the street, they are rich enough, they can keep quiet and go to Indonesia or wherever and live their happy life there. But they say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to shout. And they were told by their peers, this is not wise. This is, you are perhaps the most foolish fellow I have come across. Why would you want to shout at Dan?
When you don't have to.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Keep quiet and enjoy your life. But he said no, because his queue was the longest, expectedly, and this giraffe, Mwiro, queue was, I think, 3 or 4 people, and it won. And Matiba could not see logic. Matiba could not understand how this happened. So, and coming from Muranga North, and we are known for our tempers and, tantrums, he just came with the vehicles and carried all the Kano chairs and all, and then carried a letter of resignation to Daniel Moi, the first minister, to resign. And that really liked the system of the day. I was feeling the same when I left Windsor Hotel, that what should I do? But I started to tamper myself down because there are lessons also we've learned in terms of how.
So you continued campaigning for the Azimio candidate,
Yes.
and you still stayed loyal
yes, to the system.
the system,
Yes.
the Azimio side.
Yes.
So what happened in the final result? Do you agree, unlike Jeremiah Kioni, your party secretary general, who says there's absolutely nothing like a yellow wave in Mount Kenya? That is figment of people's imagination.
There's that kind of attitude that got us defeated. Raila was realistic. When I had a chat with him and I told him, there is a way in which we can move this election to 70% in Mount Kenya, I saw his look on me. And it's like, the march we're expecting here is 40%. So there was some realism about how Mount Kenya was. Why? Because for William, this thing was a marathon. He started a long time ago. He didn't start in after the handshake, as people are saying. William started way back in 2012, if I remember. I had a conversation with him because we were on the same side of things in 2012. And it was the debate about whether the Mount Kenya will give him the vote or not, or whether he should be the deputy to Uhuru or not. This is a conversation we had. It was in the think tank that was doing that. And I remember William very well saying, I'll be deputy to Uhuru and will support him to be elected. But when my time comes, I'm not sure you guys are going to elect me, like in Tajipanga. That's what he told me in October 2012. So for him, it was not a marathon, it was not a sprint. It was a marathon, and he invested everything in it. He invested time, which is the new commodity. He invested time. So, and at that time in 2012, the investment on these, I'm talking about Mount Kenya specifically, the investment on Raila was on us looking for the ugliest images, this devil with the 7 horns, with a tongue spitting fire, and that you have to run away with. Because politics is very interesting. It's like a religion.
But let me ask this question, Prof.
Yeah.
Yes, there was the demonization of Raila, but then there are those who say there was a backlash against Uhuru. What was the backlash for? Was it that he supported Raila? Or was it that... Because I've never really got my head around this. What is the angst against the president?
No, let me start with this. There was no specific angst. I mean, or rather, I would say what you can call generic hatred or anger with Raila. And I think now, from now on, he's a factor because he got 23% from 0 point something percent, the kind of Wajakoya vote that he got elsewhere is what Raila would get in the Mount Kenya. Now he's a factor. He's at 23%, which, if you look at this, approximately 6 million votes from the region, the 10 counties of the region, it translated to 840,000, very, very close to what he got in total in Ukambani region. So give him another. If somebody had put Raila into the election mode in, let's say, 2019, that start, and you invest in his activity in Mount Kenya, quiet, not the street kind, moving from door to door in Mount Kenya, he would have shared that vote with William.
Something I have to ask. Huh?
Yes, please.
Again, this is now my age playing out. In 1969, I was 9 years old. And the thing that I understood about it was something that was taking place in Ishaweri, Othing specifically. It's around that time that Jaramogi Odinga had formed his Kenya People's Union.
Yes.
And the narrative at that time, and here I am quoting Fan the Flame, John Gatu's book, because this is my reference point. And he talked about the experiences that church leaders within the PCEA, locals, people who did not want to take the oath. And the oath was that the leadership of Kenya must remain in the house of Mumbi. That was the oath that people were taking, according to the book. Now, the question I'm asking is, could that process of oathing have carried on its influence to the present date? Because the interpretation of that oath was then, if it is to remain in the house of Mumbi, the only person who seemed to challenge the so-called leadership was somebody who came from the lake. And at that time, it was Jaramogi. So could this have played into Raila's acceptance beyond the demonization?
That argument is fraud. Fraud because 8 years after the whole thing, Moi became a president. He's not from the house of Mumbi. If I look at him, he's actually a Herod Nairots. He's not even a Bantu. Forget about, perhaps a Muruya would have done better because generically or that way. I'm pushing this argument to say it's force. It's force. Now, again, if you look at William Ruto and how I had a conversation with my mother, who is 94 years, and I had volunteered to go home and pick her so that we go and vote together. And she told me, I don't want us to go in the same car. Let's vote and meet home. I asked, Mommy, why? I'm offering a ride. He said, because I don't want us to come fighting because of where I'm going to vote. She's 94 because of where I'm going to vote. Me, I'm going to vote Raila, and had made it public in the radios and where I'm Azimio. And therefore, I'm saying those who like me and who think like me, can you please gang up with me, vote with me? It did not have an impact even on my mother. So she went to vote in the Muslim.
So why did a 94-year-old woman,
Yes,
with all the experiences in life, pick on Ruto?
I'm answering my brother Muga that there is no oath that tells Kikuyus that you can vote this way or that way. That's a Pharisee. These are because my mother did not vote a Kikuyu this year. I voted Eruo, and we are the same, and both of us took the oath. I took the oath as a young boy because it was given to everybody. But the oath was not about who to vote and who not to vote. Because we had our own issues.
What was the oath for?
Oh, no, well, the people, I don't understand myself because, as you know, 1969, I had just come out of my diapers. So I can't talk much about this.
Has your mother told you what the oath was about?
No, she. I mean, everybody
The
was.
oath is the oath. You don't.
The oath, and that's not the first one. Kikuyus take oath every time. When you talked about Mungiki, and we talk about Mungiki here, what was the big issue? It was about the oath. Because what the Kikuyus do in their culture, I like the narrative. He said, I'm an elder, so I understand.
You are an elder.
Yes, I am. Yeah, it's true. And it's the deliberate choice to be an elder. In other words, to understand your people beyond your 20 years in America and elsewhere. You need to understand your people clearly. And that's how I was able to be elected, because I knew to gain popularity in Muranga, because I did not use the politics, I used culture, and it's easier. The point that we have among the Kikuyus is that if you don't talk to them, then what you are talking about is serious, because we have spaces of discussions. Now, when we go to the marketplace, you talk with everybody and sell everything and buy everything. That's the transaction there is not, it has no consequence. It is either you lost or you won. That's the marketplace, and you surround it. When you want to give away your daughter to a family, they have to come and they have to sit in a specific place, and conversation has to have so and so innate, because this is a serious affair. When you want to get your son a daughter, a wife, it's the same. These are serious affairs. When you want to make serious decisions as a community, you have to sit in a certain way. So that's what Remuruan was about. Because Remuruan, we had refused to vote to vote for the new constitution as a community. Those who were there in April, May, June, the Kikuyus were not with the constitution at all. At all. I can say here, even Uhuru Kenyatta has doubts about it. So we had to convince him individually, but individually it didn't work. So we had to go to Rumuru and then dress each other down and say, why are we rejecting this constitution? And what did we want in it which is not there? And what gains are innate that we can count on? At the end of the day, Jenga Karume and everybody was there. And we did not talk about this is the MP for Kikuyu and this is the former MP. Muite and Guyai were seated there in the same table. So it was not political. It is about us. And the decision was made. We are going to vote for this constitution. And Uhuru and others said, yes, we have agreed. And from that point, the game changed. Mount Kenya became now owning this. Why was that? Because we sat down in a solemn situation in a certain way. There was no that kind of sitting in Mount Kenya to support Raila Odinga.
And would it have made a difference?
Yes.
Had there been?
Huge.
Had there been that kind of consensus?
Huge.
Corporate sitting around the table and
Yes.
agreeing.
Yeah.
Would there have been a difference at the mountain with the kind of vote that we're seeing?
Huge. We asked for it. I asked for it. I was one of the conveners of Remuruan because I was the CEO of the constitution from the government side. And I knew, so I was ruling. I had come from South Africa and here I have come to rule, and I had made my good life in South Africa. Right. And here I'm the CEO. I'm going to lose the constitution. Everybody in Kenya will come. The guy who came from South Africa to get us.
That's why we lost.
So I went to cry to Jenga Karume and others and told them, we need to think about. And that's how we thought about 1961. 1961, and why Remuru? 1961 is when the Kikuyu sat down there and said, 1, we are not going to fight again. 2, we are going to constitute ourselves into a political process, and Kano was born. And from that point on, we moved. So I had that imagination as a historian, that this is where we broke. So we went back to Remuru, and we got a new constitution. We returned to Remuru too, now to decide on what is our political path. Do we back Raila Odinga, or do we go on our own as politicians? And who do we go with? And the decision was made, we are going to have Uhuru as our leader. Our leader meaning our regional kingpin.
Right.
Then we will negotiate with whoever is going to agree with our issue. And the issue of the ICC became the main issue. And who was next to it is William. So the negotiation now was struck that way, and that was the nature of that. But people had already decided. Before that, we were badly divided, because we were saying you cannot present to the Kenyans a person who has already been indicted by a court.
Prof, I want to thank you very much for joining us. I mean, 1 hour is a short time.
Yeah, I know.
And so we need to come back because we have barely scratched the surface. We need to come back and understand this yellow, whether there was yellow or no yellow wave in Mount Kenya, and what that means consequentially going forward, especially now that you're an elder of the Kikuyu people. What does it mean going forward? Is there going to be an emergence of another new Kikuyu kingpin, or will you adopt William Ruto as the new Kikuyu kingpin, now that you voted for him so overwhelmingly? Thank you very much, Professor Peter KAGWANJA. He's a political analyst. He's been here with us. The conversations continue.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.